What's up, Rotters, and welcome to this bonus episode of Brain Rot, the podcast that takes a deep dive into the best and worst horror films of the 80s and 90s. I'm Stevie, your VHS veteran. This week, I'm taking a little hiatus, but we will be back next week with the regular show, where I'll be covering George Clooney's debut movie, Return to Horror High from 1987, and I will be joined by Julie Averton, who last appeared on the main feed talking about the ridiculous trauma movie Splatter University. Not wanting to leave you with nothing to feast on, I've decided to drop this mini bonus ep. So, back in April, I text friend of the pod Louise Blain and asked if I could ask her a favour. She said something along the lines of, "Sure, shoot, what is it?" I then asked if I could organise a Zoom meeting to ask her. She kindly obliged. Once we were logged on, I had the audacity to ask if she fancied covering the Children of the Corn franchise with me over on Patreon. She quite innocently and naively said she would love to, and asked how many movies there were. "About 11, I replied. Luckily, I'd arranged to ask her face-to-face, meaning the pressure to accept was very heavy, and so we began our journey, our very long journey. By, I think, the second movie, she understood why I asked her the way I did. And so, over several months, we worked our way through this audaciously agonizing franchise. Along the way, we had guests join us to help sort the corn from the chaff, such as Becky Dark and Anna Bogatskaya and Mike Muncer. With Mike, we covered movies 6, 7, and then the 2009 remake. Today, I'm dropping you our chat about Children of the Corn Revelation, which is number 7 in the series. So if you like what you hear and want to complete the full journey, then just head to patreon.com/Stevie's Brain Rot, where you can hear coverage of all 10 movies. The 11th is still coming, apparently. That's a brand new one. In this episode, I think we'd reached delirium, and so enjoy our hysterical ramblings, and I'll see you next week, Rotters. Toodles! Children of the Corn 7, Revelation from 2001. Mike, do you have any kind of synopsis?
I have a kind of synopsis for this, but I even have questions as I read my synopsis.
Oh, God.
Jamie arrives in Omaha, Nebraska, so not Gatlin, or is it? Anyway, to look for her grandmother, who has been missing and not returning her calls for over a week. She arrives at her apartment block, which seems to be empty, but might not be empty, and I think is next to a cornfield, but might also be in the middle of a town, and is filled with creepy, ghostly children and weird, shouty adults. She teams up with a local cop and charisma vacuum detective Armbrister to investigate what's really going on in this apartment block and what really happened to her grandmother. It turns out her grandmother was the only survivor of a creepy child death cult, and now the spirits of those death kids are coming for her, blah, 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 dream sequences, blah, 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 prophecies, blah, 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 bleeding corn on the cob, blah, 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 the end. That's as much as I could get, really, out of this film.
But somehow they managed to squeeze House of the Dead in there.
Right?
Well, it was almost like them saying, we know how bad this film is, because when I think of House of the Dead, I think of the Uwe Boll, terrible, one of the worst films ever made as well.
As a film.
Yeah, exactly.
But as long as... part of me was like, are you trying to blame video games for these kids being this violent? Because please don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that. I thought it doesn't come off that well.
No.
But also, it is the official game.
Yes,
it is because they have that
the whole scene,
famous line with the famous line, the way it announces it constantly, and it goes, "The House of the Dead."
Yeah.
With the gap.
And actually, some of the scenes where they're playing House of the Dead are the most interesting scenes.
Yeah, they are. I was genuinely like, I perked up a bit. I was like, "Ooh, video games!"
Yeah.
Oh, and then I went back to my stupor.
Yeah, so as you say, Mike, it's another semi-derelict place, the Hampton Arms condos.
With a perfect square of shit CG corn outside. She arrived. I was like, oh, she's had to walk past a cornfield at the front of these apartments. Why is there corn? And it turned out that was where her grandmother's body was, right? Because she'd
just right there,
because she'd been hit by an inexplicable train.
She'd be hit by a train that was also outside the apartment block? Where was the train?
At no point were there trains other than when she got hit by one and got thrown to the front of the apartment block, where the corn then grew around her as a hug, as an embrace.
Yes.
Where her granddaughter then arrived to hear that nobody had heard about that. Oh, this is some new corn here. Never.
Oh, wow. Did you notice that the number of Hampton Arms condominiums was 696, and not at one point, even at the end when the explosion happens, does the 9 in the
Become
middle
a 6.
swing down to make it 666?
I know.
No, it's just literally 696. It's just the address.
Like no one thought of that.
Inconsequential. No. It's just, well, it's next to 698. So obviously,
you're so right.
No,
it was like, surely this is Chekhov's upside down 6, right? No, it's not. It's not. It's just that,
this
like
doesn't understand Chekhov.
No.
This doesn't understand Chekhov. This thinks that when you see corn, it's like corn. Chekhov, fine. It does not understand who Chekhov is.
Chekhov.
Oh God.
Yeah, you mentioned him, Detective Armbrister. Now, did a member of the public win a competition to be in this film? Because I don't like to be rude about fellow actors, but he's not one. So I feel like I can say that.
He's not an actor, is he? He's not an actor.
What the hell? Like, both he and his character, I feel like it's their first day on the job.
Yes, and actually, even at Jamie, I mean, she was all right, but there were, I think particularly those scenes they have together, Jamie and Armbrister, are just, it's like watching people that have never acted in their lives talk.
Or even spoken out loud.
Corn. Just saying corn to each other and other things, and you think, what's happening here? It's very strange. Yes. But yeah, he's pretty terrible. Yeah.
How were you pulled into this one, Louise?
No.
This mystery?
No. I literally found it so difficult. Do you know when
I did.
you are? It's like that bit in Buffy when it's like the nightmare where someone says, right, this bit is really important for the test, and Buffy can't pay any attention because this is the bit that you have to learn, and then someone says it in French. Yeah. This was literally that for me. It's like, watch the movie, Louise. Watch the movie. Oh, I'm being distracted by like fluff that might pass the screen by, or I was watching it while I was cat sitting my friend's cats last night. I'd be completely distracted. I was like, oh, beans, this is nice. Oh wait, I've got to watch the movie again, and it was impossible. It had no pull or impetus, just like the previous. It had nothing. It was just her going through a ghost house of creepy children stuff without anything fun happening.
Yeah.
And this one, I think, doesn't it, Mike, feels so much more akin to those middle Hellraisers where it focuses on basically one person in a deserted area having to kind of talk to themselves because they're on their own for most of the movie going, oh, that's strange. Yeah. Or kind of going, hey, little girl, come back here. And it's just...
Exactly that. Do you know what? Marginally better than the previous one, I would say.
I agree.
But... like I had to physically put my phone on the other side of the room because I thought I need to pay attention to this film. Like you, Louise, I was like, I need to try not to distract myself. But then, and I was kind of like, this is all right. I kind of didn't mind the setup. Oh, okay, some creepy kids. Oh, okay, some like bumps in the night. And I was like, this is going all right. It must be nearly finished. And then I checked the time and I was like 35 minutes in out of 80 minutes. And I was like, what? It felt like I'd done everything that this film could do at that point. And that was where I had to get my phone back and text you guys being like, oh my God, when does this end?
Because you look at the running time and go 80 minutes, 82 minutes. You go, oh that's fine, nothing. Great. I'll just wang that on.
Wang that on.
Wang it on.
No, it turns out these films feel about 3 hours longer than they need to be.
It was rough.
Yeah.
And it just feels so incompetently structured and created. It's like no one has been involved in a movie before. Even the bit where, she says the word email 3 times, which is obviously really cool. It's like, they're not that new in 2001.
They're not.
We've had them for a while now. She keeps going, oh, just email me. I'm going to email my boss and say I'm late.
Yeah.
And so she does. She emails her boss, right? Okay. She composes this email.
I knew you were going to bring up this email.
She writes in caginess.
Yes.
It's insane. She writes this. Stuck here for a few days. My grandmother is... unwell.
Yeah.
She literally types the hesitation with ... So she was going to say the truth, which is my grandmother's missing, but then goes, oh no, I don't want to say that. I'll say I'm well. But she writes that. She's ... unwell.
Yeah. And it's not.
Why?
And it's not even
the ...
And it's not even ... Stevie. It's about 12 dots as well. Like she puts about 12 dots. Like, yeah, I thought exactly the same thing. It's like,
what can I say?
Surely you could have just filmed her pause for a moment before she wrote unwell, right?
Hovering over the keyboard for a second.
I mean, she could have destroyed another polystyrene cup in that.
The polystyrene cup?
Oh, yes. What's that about? They try. That's the thing as well. They add things like that to try and have little cute callbacks or references. Like she's one of these people that pulls away bits of the polystyrene cup. So later when he gives her one, he goes, just how you like it. And he's, chewed it?
You could just see him, like, preparing her coffee in the other room, just gnawing around the rim of the cup. And what does he say to her when he goes, not exactly Starbucks, is it, this coffee?
Right.
Oh, God, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's also the fact that under this building is basically a meth lab, but instead of crack, they're manufacturing carrots and other veg. A veg
Evil
lab,
veg.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. So
Another via Silent Hill type.
Yes.
Room. It's all very much, as you were saying, Mike, that very noughties look of everything is very green,
flickering
and
green light,
dark, and there's lots of close-ups on horrible, rusty industrial pipes and signs that say "keep out" and.
Yeah. And so, story-wise, does this in any way link to the previous one or anything we've seen before?
No.
It doesn't, does it? This feels
Zero.
entirely new.
Completely.
Yeah, okay, fine.
I
Just
don't think
wanted
there's no mention of even Gatlin or
No.
prophecies or
mean,
anything like that.
Really, it's quite amazing, isn't it? That all these completely unrelated movies keep being shit. Like, you'd think that after you'd done about 4 unrelated movies in a row, one of them would be reasonable. But actually, they're actively because they don't have to adhere to the massive lore, and yet they just find a new way to reorganize the same shit and spread it out in a completely different pattern, which is actually the same pattern because no one's having a unique thought.
Yeah, it's
ever.
the same. It's the same movie ultimately, isn't it? As the one we just discussed. It's like, yeah, you're right. Like, surely the law of averages would suggest that like, one of these might be all right. Like, it's almost impressive how bad they keep managing
continue
to
to
make
be.
these films. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like someone's been commissioned and said, right, so this is number 7, you have to link it up. They've given free rein, as you say, Louise, and no one goes, let's think outside the box a bit here. No, it's always the same. Fucking hell.
It's bizarre as well because, again, if you think about structure, like bringing one character to somewhere so that they can endure a series of things is actually really challenging because films rely on character and conversation and structure and getting you to, like, making you get to know certain people so that there's a tension of, will you lose that person? And when you lose that person, there's a release. None of that happens. I mean, the closest we get is we're introduced to this woman who's stopped paying her rent in the building because actually there's people living there. And then she dies horrifically in a bath.
Yep.
And that's
I quite
so did
enjoyed.
I, because that was the closest it got to being a movie about people who then go through horror.
Yeah, you've got these residents, haven't you? You've got Tiffany the stripper, you've got Jerry the buffoon, the resident buffoon, and then the angry guy, like in Friends, banging on the walls and ceiling because everyone's being too loud. And the Tiffany the stripper. I was she was a breath of fresh air.
She was the best
within
character.
This world, as you say, because you're like, there's a bit of life. But the actress, bless her again, I can tell she's learnt her lines as they're written, because there's one line that she says, which is, hang on, I've written it down. Yes, it's when she's asking about her grandmother. She's asking about Hannah, Tiffany. What's the other girl's name?
Jamie?
Hannah? Or was that
Jamie.
Jamie?
Jamie.
So the line is, were you guys, were you close? But she says it as one line. She just goes, were you guys, were you close?
Yes.
She uses as part of the sentence. Were you guys as I mean close?
Yeah.
What? And then she paints her nails with a dry applicator with nothing on it.
I know that. And
God.
it's a close-up shot of that as well. It's like, why give us a close-up of that?
Yeah, really.
Fix it in post. It's fine.
Yeah, it's weird that. I noticed that as well, the way she read that line. And it's like, surely that could have been a moment when they could have put ... in the script to help her out, right? Like, you know.
They put the dots in the wrong place.
Yeah,
If only she'd been writing the script instead of that fucking email.
It's a nightmare, but I'm with you guys. Like, she was a breath of fresh air in that movie. If only she'd had a bit more to do other than just strip and then die, right? But never mind.
The backstory in this one, because obviously it's a new one each time. So the backstory is that there was this revival tent. When they said that, I thought like a resuscitation tent, but no, they mean like let the Lord enter you, feel Him inside you, all that sort of revival stuff. So it went up in flames 60 years ago, and there was a cult of kids in it. And then this building that's now derelict less than 60 years later was built on top of it, and Jamie's mum was part of the cult but was the only one that survived and is now shunning her past.
Yes, and it's almost like all of those other people, the dead kids from that cult, are coming back to sort of reclaim her, right? And I guess...
And they're taking the bodies of people...
Yes. Well, why are they killing all the residents in that apartment block just because that apartment block is built on the site of where that fire happened or something? I don't know.
Because they kind of then... Oh, I don't fucking know.
I think we always give these movies far too much plot than they actually have. Like, I think we try and logically go, oh, it must be this because we understand narrative. They don't. They don't have any of these cares. They don't give a fuck about these things.
Is there this idea that, like, they're trying to kill the grandmother's sort of bloodline of relatives, too, because, like, she was supposed to die and therefore the rest of the family aren't supposed to exist? So they're trying to kill the granddaughter, Jamie. But also there's this sort of side plot where her parents died in a fire. But somewhere else, right? And it's like, are we supposed to believe that's connected in some way?
Well, the ominous way that she said they died in a house fire a few years ago.
Yes.
Connecting the dots.
Very paranormal activity, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, also, then you get Michael Ironside popping up just to try and give some of that backstory. He's the one that tells us all of this shit. Because he's been we've seen him sort of walking around sort of alleyways in shadows for a while, ominously, and also the detective, I love that he goes, uh-oh, what's that? There's blood there. And he tastes it.
Yeah, does a little...
that's how you check to find out that it's chocolate.
Right. First thing he does.
Is that how you conduct that test at every crime scene?
The forensic taste test.
That is how policing works, Stevie. You get in there, you put your bib on, and you just get stuck into whatever's there. Yeah. Have a little taste. Yeah. It's not your grandmother's, it's Hershey's, is I believe what
is it type O? No, it's Hershey's.
Hershey's.
Yeah. Also, the fucking, when she's like, have you got a light? And he goes, have you got any matches? And he gets out a lighter, which she uses, and he says, keep it. It's not an 80p Bic lighter. It is a black Zippo. Yeah. And he clearly smokes because you wouldn't have that for any other reason. You don't give away that kind of lighter, do you?
No. Well, there's a connection between them.
And why would she keep it? Fuck off. And when Michael Ironside, actually, when he approaches her to go to, talk to her, he grabs her from behind by the mouth. And it turns out he actually just wants to talk. Because you think, oh, shit, it's a bad guy. But it's not. He comes behind her and grabs her and drags her by the mouth. And then it's just like, I just wanted to chat to you about what's going on around here. How about excuse me? How about a tap on the shoulder?
The only time that is allowed, and it's not the mouth, is something that we will be talking about in future, which is in Salem's Lot. Stephen King does this. You think that's a girl, there's something going to happen to her because she feels a hand on her shoulder, and then the chapter cuts, and it turns out it is not who you think it is. And
it's very R.L. Stein. It's
very Goosebumps. It's the most Goosebumps he's ever been. And
the chapter.
And I was like, you don't do this anymore because this is quite naughty. Like this is cheaper than you are.
Cheap.
It's really cheap.
Yeah, you're better than this. Come on.
Yeah, don't do this, King. But that was I noticed that because it was so bad with regards to that. That's not how you sneak up on anyone. Excuse me. Even when you're when you don't want to give someone a fright. Like when someone's got headphones in and you know who they are and you don't want to touch them because they would jump out of their skin because you're not a character in a horror movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get in their eye line.
Yes.
That's what you do. You don't come from behind. You make sure you just come around and go, oh, sorry.
And that scares them enough. That scares people enough without giving them a fucking jump scare.
Yeah.
Yeah, a physical attack
Round the
from
mouth
behind.
jump
grab
scare.
around the face. Like, that's not how I get people's attention mostly. No, it's
No,
so
it's
true.
not okay.
It's not okay. It's not okay.
But then the ending's all... I mean, it's just a fucking mess, isn't it? Like, she's turned the gas on, but then the little girl also turns more gas on.
Oh, yeah.
And then to distract the girl, she gives her Palm Pilot, which apparently has a game where you kill people because that's the only thing that distracts
Video games.
kids.
What?
Yeah, but on a Palm Pilot?
Why are those kids...
I think Snake at the most.
What do those kids... I just don't... What are those kids doing throughout most of the film? Like, they sort of murder
Well,
people.
they're running the veg lab downstairs, aren't they?
And then running around
But
with a chair.
they sneak
aren't
around the little corner. They
Yeah.
sneak around the little corner shop, you know, stalking Jamie, and then they keep coming up to Jamie saying "kill" or something, don't they? But does that mean they actually just want
kill.
to play the video game?
House
but
of
then
the
why
Dead.
do they kill the man that works in the shop and put his head in the
his
fridge?
head in the fridge.
I just don't understand what their MO is and what their and like why they do what they do at specific points in the film. I know I shouldn't be overthinking it.
They're
but I'm
just
like,
bored,
what?
Mike. They're
just
really bored.
Yeah, yeah.
Let
Yes.
the kids play House of the Dead and kill people, Mike. That's fine.
fine.
Come on,
That's
yeah.
fine. Okay. All right.
And then, of course, there's another explosion. The 696 remains 696. And then we get giant face souls
Yeah.
leaving
Oh,
the
yeah.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Kind of 6-foot faces in the smoke, which are the souls of the Gatlin kid.
I thought it was the revival tent kids, but is that Gatlin? Is
Yeah,
that the same as
that's-
Gatlin?
well,
Are we in Gatlin? I don't.
We're not in Gatlin anymore.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home. Please.
The revival tent. It just doesn't have the same ring to it. But yeah,
Wow.
it's very, very strange. Very strange. And I love that. I love this thing, like you say, Stevie. It's like, how do we end it? We'll just set fire to everything and then roll the credits, basically. Like that's
Yes, always.
That's what, somebody I had a guest on my podcast recently that was talking about Hammer horror, and they joked about that's how Hammer ended as well. Like any Hammer film, it would be like we've hit the 90-minute mark. Quick, set everything on fire and roll credits. And it's like that's exactly what these movies are doing, isn't it? I think it's like an explosion, burn some corn, and roll credits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't show any of our sort of the aftermath, or show that our protagonists are all right, even, or
To be honest,
What-
though, thank
what
God,
the aftermath
thank God, because like
Yeah,
we're
true.
just so grateful that it's over, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the thing. I like some of the moments when they bite into corn and it's all bleeding and gross,
Bloody.
Yeah. You know,
I enjoy that he drops the. Do you remember those sponges that were sort of the size of 2p, and then you put it in water and it expands to like 5 times its size? I like that's what the corn does when you put it in a bath. It turns into giant.
Yeah.
Like a sharktopus,
Yeah.
and it smothers it.
oh man,
Wowee. Mike, thank you so much for doing
Don't leave.
this.
Please don't leave.
No.
Please come with us
Yeah.
into the future.
guys, you're doing God's work here, watching all of them. You really are. Thanks for having me. It was genuinely quite fun because, as bad as these films are, they're quite fun. It's almost quite therapeutic to then talk about them with people. You know,
Yeah.
I needed to do this, so thank you.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you both so much. And Louise, I'll see you next month.
See you next time, Stevie.
Bye.